Hiya. In this video, I'm going to tell you a bit more about e-commerce tracking in GA4. So I'm going to go over how you map the UA to GA4 e-commerce tracking and how it's different basically, and also how to set that up in GTM, and then how to use that within reporting as well. So this is a really good article. It's called UA to GA4, migrate e-commerce data collection from UA to GA4. It's in the analytics help section of Google, and it basically tells you the differences between UA and GA4 e-commerce tracking. So for example, here you can see the purchase UA event. So that's the actual transaction that happens. That has a particular set of fields that's available. That in GA4, the event is still called purchase. However, some of the fields actually have different naming conventions. So for example, the transaction ID here in UA is now, it was called just ID, but now it's actually called transaction_ID. Some of them are the same, but some of them are different. So revenue is now actually value. Another thing to note is that's the same with the product information as well. So in every event that happens, so in every transaction or add to cart event, there's always product information in that as well. And that is also quite different. So here, for example, you'll see that the items parameter is that's what it's called now, but it was called products, and it's now called item_ID, but it was called ID. So there are some changes here in terms of naming convention, and we'll have to map them in GTM. The other interesting thing to note is that enhanced e-commerce isn't really a thing in GA4. So previously in UA, you had to sort of enable enhanced e-commerce in the UA admin and interface, and you had to set up all this extra tracking. However, now it's sort of automatically enabled. So if you just set that tracking up yourself, then it automatically comes in to the user interface, which I'll show you a bit more about later. But it just means that we can, if you've already got enhanced e-commerce on GA3, we can just go ahead and set that up on GA4. There's nothing to enable, but it will just start tracking itself, which is great. So for example, you can see here in UA, there weren't really extra categories. That was something, there was like product hierarchies in enhanced e-commerce, but now that's actually just been replaced with item category 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's a few extra fields here like discount as well, which could be really useful. So how do we go ahead and start setting that up? It's not actually as difficult as you may think. If you've got everything set up for GA3 already, then you just have to set up the mapping in GTM. So for example, your site should have a data layer already. So here I'm looking at the merchandise store again, and you can see here it's got some bits of data layer. Your devs should have done this already, or if you're using WordPress, then it automatically comes in if you've got that enabled. So for the sake of this, we're going to sort of ignore what's on the merchandise store, but we're going to pretend that we've got all the old mapping still in our tags. So we're going to pretend that we've got ID still when the transaction tag fires. So we're going to pretend that that's still what's on our site. And what we want to do is we want to map that to the transaction ID in GA4. So all I have to do is I have to set up a variable. So here I'm going to set up a new data layer variable in GTM, and I'm going to pretend that my ID for my transaction is actually coming through from the field transaction ID. So what that means is the name here would be something like transaction ID, and then colon whatever the transaction ID is. So this is probably very different between each site. So you'll probably need to go in and check that, maybe do a test transaction, view the source, and then just check what it's being named as. So I'm going to call this transaction ID, data layer. And I'm going to do the same with a few of the other ones as well. So I'm going to do revenue, tax, and shipping as well. So it's probably worth checking out on this same article in the required parameters section what's actually required and what you can include in each event. So in the purchase event, which is the transaction event, we can include all this stuff. So I can miss out affiliation if I want to, and I'm actually only going to set up like shipping, tax, value, items, and transaction ID. So these are very varied. So with the view cart section event, you only include a few things in there, but all the bold items, which are mainly items and the IDs and the value here, that's required. Otherwise, it won't be processed in GA. So back in GTM, I've actually also included the products data layer because that's required. So I'm going to be mapping what was my products section. So all my list of different products, I'm going to be mapping that as items in GA4. So I've actually got products, I've got ID, transaction ID, revenue, shipping, and tax. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new transaction tag. So I'm going to go into my tag configuration. I'm going to go into GA4 events. I'm going to call it the purchase event. So this is basically, that's going to be whatever one you want to track. So this could be remove from cart, it could be view item, it could be purchase, it could be refund, whatever. The only thing to be careful of is make sure you obviously put the right event name for whatever trigger you're using. So if we're now setting up the purchase event, that will then obviously be the confirmation page. So for example, this would fire when page path equals transaction success, or whatever my confirmation page is. So if you're doing a add to cart event, the trigger would obviously be add to cart. So just make sure you've got those set up correctly. So here I'm going to be using my GA4 page view configuration. So all the settings from here is going to go into my purchase event. But now I get to include my event parameter mapping. So I've got my event name, and then I just need to basically put in the fields for that. So where was I? So for purchase, I'm going to do items, which is going to go there. I'm going to do transaction ID, which is going to go there. I'm going to go value, and then I think I had shipping and tax as well. And then all I do is I actually just use the data layer variables that I'm reading, which are on the page already, but I'm just going to now be assigning them to the new parameter names. So this one, for example, is going to be the products. Where are you? You're there. This one's going to be the ID. This one's going to be the value, and etc. So now that that's all set up, you can submit and publish that. Just remember to preview it, test it, and make sure it's firing correctly and it's not firing multiple times and all the information's coming through as you need to. So we're now going to move on to actually using that data within GA4. Cool. So in here, you can see that, again, we're looking at the merchandise store still. You can see that some of those sort of events that we had set up, so things like item views, add to basket, purchase events, all the different events which we're able to set up are now actually coming through as metrics. So this would have been an enhanced e-commerce metric in UA, but it's now just a standard metric in GA4 because you can go ahead and set that view item event up. So that actually maps to this metric. And all the product information that comes in with that event then comes through as things like item name, item ID, item brand, etc. And you can add in a load of other information here, like you would using the other reports. So stuff like session medium. Oh, that didn't quite work. Oh yeah, it did. So you could then filter this by organic or device, stuff like that. Or if there's a particular campaign which is pushing a particular product, you can see if that's working. So yeah, all these metrics are here by standard, which are really useful. This one, for example, is quite interesting. So here you can see you've got loads of views for this product, but you've got no purchases. So that could mean that there's an issue with your perhaps data layer in the purchase. When this is coming through as a purchase, it might be called a different thing in the purchase data layer, if that makes sense. So it might be worth just investigating if something looks weird like that. Then you could investigate that further. There might be something weird going on with the data layer. Also here, for example, this is blank, so I would definitely investigate that, maybe see what page that's coming through on and what item that actually is. So there's also a load of other metrics available in here that weren't in the standard reporting. So if you go to explore and you create a new template, you can add in all the different types of e-commerce metrics, and then you can also add in all the different types of e-commerce dimensions, something like promotion ID, promotion name, and you can then mix those with other dimensions as well, demographics, all that sort of stuff. And then you can create your own reports in here. So this is kind of a bit more flexible than the standard reporting, but yeah, there's a bit more free play here.